Welcome back to the Briar Black Futures podcast. I'm your host, Bisa, and today I've got a great show for you and an amazing guest that I have an interview with. And today we're going to focus on mindfulness and some great self-care practices you can do at home to make sure you're living in a mindful way and doing things that really nourish your soul. So without further ado, let's get into it. And now it's time for the upliftment segment of the podcast. This is a time when I share a quote that ties in with the theme of the show and is also one that inspires me and provides upliftment. And I hope that you all enjoy the quote I share today. And today's quote comes from a very wise, a sage meditation teacher and the author of a wonderful book you should all read called Radical Dharma. And her name is Reverend Angel Kyoto Williams. And the quote is, by returning to our inner wholeness through mindfulness, we can move through the world from a place of truth, connect authentically with others, and transform society. Let me say it again because it's so good. By returning to our inner wholeness through mindfulness, we can move through the world from a place of truth, connect authentically with others, and transform society. And I love this quote because it talks about, for me, it talks about the fact that when you turn inward and learn more about yourself and show up in a more authentic and real way, one that aligns with your spirit and your values and all the things that are true for you, you then are better able to connect with other people in your life. And then, of course, you and your community that you've connected with deeply and authentically can go out there in the world and create positive and beautiful change for everyone. So that quote is gorgeous. I hope that you loved it because I love it and it really resonates with me. And I hope you got something good out of it. And now it's time for the Black History Moment. And today I want to share the story of a great man who, through his spiritual practice, was able to tune in to his inner wisdom and then go out into the world to create a massive transformational change that helped his community and left a lasting legacy. And that gentleman is a man by the name of Alvin Sykes. Now, Alvin Sykes was born on July 21st, 1956 to a very young mother during the height of the Jim Crow era in Kansas City, Missouri. The beginning of his life was very tumultuous, lots of difficult circumstances, so Alvin eventually ended up in foster care, and luckily for him, his foster mother, Bernetta Page, fed his insatiable curiosity by exposing him to many books, magazines, and lots of music. At the age of 16, Sykes left school and began to spend his days a few blocks from his home at the Kansas City Library, where he dove into studying books on music, business, math, and eventually the law. Then at the age of 18, he was introduced to a Buddhist practice that involved chanting and meditation by his good friend and renowned jazz musician, Herbie Hancock. Years later, Sykes emerged as a self-taught legal scholar and crusader who was committed to using the inner wisdom and courage he'd learned from his spiritual practice to work tirelessly for minorities and the poor through the justice system. Sykes was determined to address the violent racism affecting his community and also the lack of consequences offenders faced. In 1980, when his good friend and noted saxophonist Stephen Harvey was murdered, and then his murders were quickly acquitted by an all-white jury, Sykes decided to sit down and chant to deal with the loss of his good friend. Then, with the encouragement of Herbie Hancock, he decided to get up and do something about it. Sykes returned to the library and began poring over legal books, eventually finding a statute that allowed Steve Harvey's murder case to be reopened. He went on to start the Steve Harvey Justice Campaign and eventually convinced the U.S. Department of Justice that Steve Harvey's civil rights had been violated. Eventually, because of Sykes' persistent effort, Steve Harvey's murderer was sentenced to life imprisonment and is currently serving one of the longest sentences for a civil rights violation. Sykes went on to investigate the cases of many African Americans who were murdered in the 60s, rising to national prominence in 2000 when he took on the case of Emmett Till, a 14-year-old Chicagoan who was accused of whistling at a white woman and then abducted and beaten and eventually murdered by two white men who went on to be acquitted by an all-male and all-white jury. Due in large part to Sykes' advocacy and activism, the Emmett Till Civil Rights Crime Act was passed into U.S. federal law in 2008, providing the funding necessary to reopen investigations into racially motivated homicides that happened during the civil rights era. In 2013, Alvin Sykes was honored as a scholar in residence at the Kansas City Public Library, and he remained a president of the library, continuing his crusade for justice until he passed in 2021. And now you know. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Brighter Black Futures podcast. And today I have a great guest for you to talk about mindfulness, which I think is so important. Mindfulness and self-care, which I think is so important for the Black community, especially marginalized communities tend not to focus on that. So I wanted somebody who I believe embodies that energy, good vibe. I met Erica through a business course we took together for Black entrepreneurs. And every time she spoke in the program, I was like, because she's just so her business is about yoga and meditation and sound baths and helping people lean into self-care. And every time she spoke, I felt that in her voice and her energy and her passion for her work. So I wanted to invite her to the show. So Erica, welcome to the Brighter Black Futures podcast.
Thank you so much. That was a very nice introduction. I appreciate that.
The name of Erica's company, which I didn't mention before, is Aura Body and Home. And it's aurabodyandhome.com if you want to check her out. I'll definitely put that in the show notes, but I want to state it clearly from the top, and we'll get right into the questions. So, Erica, how did you get your start in this space, doing the meditations and the yoga, and helping people lean into mindfulness and self-care?
Thank you. If I kind of go back in time, I think probably the most visible seed of this was actually back in 2019, I want to say. I felt really called to go on a yoga retreat in Bali. So there was a teacher here who, had this trip to Bali, and it's a long story, but short story is I went and it was definitely an impactful trip. Not only was it yoga, but there was a lot of reflection and journaling. And I feel that a lot of healing happened for me there. I'm coming to terms with some things and sort of, yeah, allowing myself to play, allowing myself to tap into my inner child. And COVID then came around, and I was really using a lot of what I had practiced or the routines that I had created during that retreat to support myself. Being on my own during that time. I didn't have anyone else in the household. It was just me on my own, and trying to separate from work. And sort of months later, as I feel that a lot of my identity was challenged, and I know we've spoken about that as well. But yeah, later in that year, I don't know, I had thought of a meditation teacher who I had really connected with, and funny enough, she started following me on Instagram. So I thought that was really strange. So I messaged her, and we ended up meeting, we ended up chatting, and what turned into just a casual conversation turned into meditation mentorship. So I started working with Natalie, who's my mentor, and we worked with other women, and it was honing our abilities to lead meditation. And so that was the first sort of step into the world of mindfulness, and also, I guess, realizing that a lot of the stuff that I have been doing is very mindful. I didn't, sometimes you do things you don't know what it's called, but I didn't realize that I was actually practicing a lot of mindfulness, and meditation was something of interest for me even years before that, and yoga. But to actually teach it, this was sort of, so 2020 is when I started to actually facilitate. And then an opportunity came up to be able to learn yoga, which again was something I had not planned. So none of it was planned, at least to my knowledge. But it's just these doors kept opening for me to learn more about mindfulness or practices that embody mindfulness. And now it's actually exactly 4 years ago, maybe last week, that I have actually been facilitating mindfulness. And for me, mindfulness guide, I identify with that because there's so many different ways that we can be mindful, whether it is yoga, whether it is meditation. But for me, I really like to explore, how can we be more mindful? How can we get really creative about this? And, use the ancient practices, the Buddhist practices, the ancient Indian practices, and then kind of add like a new flavor to it as well, to be able to support our community or whatever the intention is for a group. So yeah, that's how
Okay.
it started.
Follow on that, because I think it's important that people know exactly what we're talking about. So how would you define mindfulness? Like, what is that exactly?
Yeah. For me, mindfulness, I think it is really, I like to say it's like the art of awareness. And awareness can be awareness of our surroundings. It could be awareness of our mind, our body, our emotions. So it really is just taking a pause to be in the present moment. And the important component of mindfulness is that when we are observing, we're doing it in a compassionate way, right? So we're not observing to then um, be upset about it or to criticize ourselves, but it's just simply observing, like, oh, my breath is actually really shallow right now, or what can I do to start to maybe find a more expansive breath? But it's really just about observation and then how we choose to interact with these surroundings or just to simply observe them. So right now, that's my sort of I mean, it can always change what your personal definition is, but right now I'd like to say it's the art of awareness.
Next question is, what have you seen in your own practice and in general for your clients are the key benefits of starting a mindfulness practice that involves things like yoga and meditation?
I think overall, with what these practices support, are dedicated time with yourself. And it doesn't necessarily mean it has to be yoga, meditation. There are so many, for example, even sports, right? That can be a form of mindfulness as well when people sort of get in the zone of whatever it might be. But with meditation, mindfulness, and yoga, we're really focusing on our body. So we're focusing on what are the sensations that we're feeling in our body, or maybe even like numbness, right? That we can also experience numbness or pain, discomfort, but it's really just, bringing our awareness to that. Also, bringing awareness to our thoughts in those times when maybe we're in a more still practice. That really gives us time to really listen to like what's going on in our head. Like, are we still thinking about something from last week? Is that person that's still on our mind? It just allows us to kind of slow down and really get in tune with ourselves. And that can be really challenging for individuals. Like I led a meditation practice last night, and it's just interesting to witness people in discomfort, or because we tend to distract ourselves a lot with things, with TV shows, other things, but to actually be still with yourself, it can be quite challenging. So these practices really allow us to come inwards. And if we think about like very specific benefits, we're looking at things like stress reduction, reducing symptoms of anxiety and depression, helping us to regulate our emotion when we can start to acknowledge and recognize our emotions and then sort of figure out ways to in a healthy way to be able to release those emotions, and in turn can help us with our relationships, with cultivating empathy, compassion, better communication, pain management. There's sometimes we go things that are in our body go unnoticed, or just things as simple as like improvement in our sleep. So these are things that have helped me personally. And I definitely notice a difference when I don't practice. So for me, it's a hey, this is working for me, so why not continue to do it?
And I'll add to that that I have done meditation for a long while myself, probably at least 10 years now. I think my meditation practice is probably a little shorter than it used to be as far as the amount of time I use it every day or do it every day. But the gratitude piece for me that comes with that is so big. And I feel so if I don't stop in the morning and take even 5 minutes to give thanks for things I have in my life. And that's something that I do that's really grounding. All right. So, in your business or body and home, you focus on women and also the BIPOC community. And why was that important to you as a practitioner as you started and continue to do your work?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I do work with all different age ranges. kids, adults. I work with anyone who, the vibe is right. You know what I mean? As far as, when opportunities come to me, I do like to be intentional about working with women and BIPOC folks because those are the experiences that I resonate with, right? Like I am a visible minority. I'm a woman. So I feel that I have, a good understanding of those communities. Not to say that I understand every, different cultural and all the sort of the um, the complexities of everything, but those are the ones that I feel that I can resonate with the most and can hopefully give the most impact to. Um, for me, like, and I think a lot of women of color can attest to the fact or had an experience where they were probably the only person of color in a yoga class, like in a yoga studio. And that happened to me a lot. And teachers might not necessarily understand what the experience is like being in these spaces and understand all the maybe the individual needs or even their language that they're using, how it can be really sensitive for us. And when I was in those situations, I was probably sitting at the back of the room because I didn't really want to stand out. And now here I am at the front of the room, which I never thought possible. Everything kind of happened. So now I am the representation that I feel that I needed. And like this summer, I worked with kids, and there were moments that I saw little Black girls just kind of staring at me because I think for them, it's like it's seeing the possibility. And especially with everything going on in our climate right now, representation is so important. So, when I can show up as a teacher, in most cases, it is sort of a sign of like safety, like, hey, there's a Black teacher. I feel more comfortable in a class with her. That can be the experience for many people. So I'm grateful that, I can take these beautiful practices that I've learned from the East and be able to bring it back to our community and the communities that probably need it the most, right? If I'm being honest. So yeah.
Okay. So for our audience, anybody out there who's thinking, hey, I want to start a mindfulness practice, I don't know where to start, what are top 5 things you think somebody could easily do at home to start tuning in inward and starting a mindfulness practice well?
We've kind of touched on it. So the meditation is definitely one that has been most supportive for me. And I know probably the image that you get when you think of meditating is someone sitting cross-legged, they have like their hands in a mudra. And yes, that is meditation. And there are individuals who can meditate for long periods of time. But again, that takes time, effort, that takes, training in a way. But meditation could be 5 minutes. It could be sitting still for 5 minutes. It could be, getting out of bed and taking that pause to just look out the window, listen to birds chirping, looking at the weather. And it can be with your cup of coffee or tea, whatever it is, but just taking that pause before you start your day. Because what might happen for most people is they jump out of bed and then it's like, okay, I gotta do this, I gotta do this. But it's like, hey, how can we like kind of really ease into the day and just take those moments? So a meditation practice, it could be a minute, it could be 5 minutes, 10. I personally, I tried to aim for about 30 minutes a day. But even this morning, I was like, I'm good. I maybe did about 15, and that's okay. I still put in the time, and it definitely will feel a lot better than if I didn't do it. So if I don't meditate, me personally, if I don't meditate, I feel it. I feel scattered, and that's when I'm like, did I meditate this morning? Oh no, I skipped it. I went to do something like, I went to look at my phone or whatnot. But I can definitely feel it in my body when I don't take that pause. And um, and this can be a second one, but if let's say someone, the idea of sitting still it's a lot for them. Another practice that you can do is journaling. So I do that sometimes as well, especially if I have maybe a lot on my mind, or maybe a dream. Maybe I want to write out a dream that I had. And it's just taking that time with yourself, pen and paper. I go through journals very quickly, but for me, it's a way to release a lot of stuff that's going on in my head, to take note of things that I've observed, to record inspiration for myself. So there's so much that you can do with journaling, even writing out kind of how you want to manifest the day, or things in the future. So it doesn't all have to be you complaining about something. It can be, yeah, just checking in with yourself. Like today I'm feeling, have a conversation with yourself, or someone else if that is helpful for you. Another practice could be going for walks. Um, so I know some people who it's like a morning ritual. I know my mom, which is it's basically since COVID and she retired, she's been taking walks every day, which has been so good for her. And just really seeing if you can find green spaces for us to be in nature, and especially water. Like I love being by water. I spent a lot of time on Lakeshore this weekend, and it was just so nice to be out there. Or just maybe finding a spot near work or wherever it is, but just finding some green spaces and observing that space over time. So whatever season it is right now, that particular area is going to look a lot different, and starting to observe those differences. We're moving into autumn, so we're going to start to see like the leaves drying and it's starting to get colder, windier. And then as it goes into winter, we're going to start to see, that same tree or that same area, it's going to start to get icy. So it's interesting to watch the cycle of seasons and just observing changes in our neighborhoods and our communities. So definitely recommend going for walks and also exploring new places to walk. So maybe if you haven't discovered somewhere, maybe taking a different trail, again, if you feel comfortable, but just kind of creating new opportunities for you to experience or to expand a ritual if it's something that you want to do on a regular basis. You actually mentioned gratitude. That's another practice, um, because it can be very easy to complain about stuff. And by all means, there are definitely things that are worthy of complaining or that need to be resolved. But it is also healthy for us to flip that and to also be grateful for what we do have. Um, I was going to the grocery store this morning, and there are individuals that are living in tents out in the park near me. And for me, that's a reminder of like, wow, I am grateful that I have a home with like clean water and like that I'm able to pay for my bills. When we get bills, we're like, oh, I gotta pay this again. But it's like something that I've learned in terms of like also like our relationship with money is like, thank you, for me being able to pay my bills, for me to be able to continue to get electricity and food. And I'm also grateful that I have a family that if I were in a situation like that they would take me in. But some of us are not very far from, the individuals that we see who are homeless, unfortunately, especially we live in Toronto, so we know the costs here. But just having a gratitude practice, gratitude for just even waking up in the morning. There's so many things for us to be grateful for. So gratitude, or having an attitude of gratitude, as they say, is definitely a good sort of a daily habit. And then I'd say finding pleasure. So, um, yeah, like doing things for yourself, being in situations or being open to receiving support from others. A lot of us tend to give, but like it's okay to receive. It's okay to accept that help that someone has offered you, indulging, and also like tapping into our inner child as well. So, um, there's actually a candy store near me. And yeah, candy definitely is that's been like a childhood love of mine. But in front of the candy store, they actually have a hopscotch, like they drew it out in chalk. And when I walk by, sometimes I will actually jump it. Like I'll do the 1 foot, 2 foot kind of thing. And it just makes such a difference in my day because it's just that little element of play or seeing other people's reactions when I do that, like seeing people smile or maybe the owner saw me do it and sort of engage in the activity that that person laid out. So yeah, finding pleasure in all different ways, simple, whether it's through taste, through touch, but just doing something that's really going to nurture your heart and yeah, keep you continuing to explore and sort of have that element of wonder and nostalgia, you know? So yeah, I think those would be yeah, that would be three or sorry, five. Five that you would.
Great list. I just want to highlight the idea of meditation not being this thing we have to sit in a certain posture for a certain amount of time. It can be simple as taking your morning coffee and just slowing down to really enjoy it and taking that
Mhm.
10, whatever it is, even less maybe, depending on how much time you have just to pause and just have a moment of reflection before you start your day, which I love. And I love the piece about the pleasure and then receiving. So kind of being tied together because most of us aren't feel guilty about doing things that are pleasurable, but they nurture us and also being able to receive as much as you give, which I think a lot of women especially have a problem with, is also a really beautiful one. And
Mhm.
thank you for that full list.
You're welcome.
So there was an article, op-ed published in the New York Times from the Surgeon General of the US, talking about how the internet and social media is affecting the mental health of children in general. And also, on top of that, Black children, particularly Black girls, are deeply affected by social media or the most impacted from what studies and research show. So if there's a parent out there who's thinking, hey, how do I help my child stay mindful and take care of themselves in the digital age, what tips would you give them to instill those kind of practices into their child's life?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, the digital age is very different than, you know, when we were kids. Um, Even myself personally, I do try to limit my time on social media, and I would say the same as well for parents and considerations for their children is creating moments without the devices, right? So whether it is, you know, for me, I at least for as a kid, and this is my love language, but quality time is a big thing for me. And a lot of my fondest memories of my childhood are actually just quality time with my family. So if you can create opportunities going out, um, um, whether it's like to a park or maybe just taking a walk together, but doing things that remove sort of that need for a digital device and just yeah limiting time on the TV or creating activities within the home that you can do together to be able to sort of just yeah explore mindfulness. I would say the first thing is removing the digital devices. And was talking to a friend the other day, and even just something as simple as eating dinner, like having it as like a phone-free zone where you can actually interact with each other and you know talk to each other. Because when you look now at restaurants, it's like everyone's on their phones, or like when they're commuting, everyone's on their phones. But just trying to eliminate or reduce the amount of time on the devices. When it comes to self-care practices for children, I think there's also an educational component too. So if maybe there is a particular mindfulness practice that you want to do with your children, maybe explaining why you're doing it, right? So that way they have an understanding of why it's beneficial as opposed to just doing it. And then walking them through the practice or doing it with them so that, because we also need to lead by example too, right? So, like, is mommy also taking time to do self-care practices? Like, I think that, yeah, I mean, children are going to definitely watch us. And if it's a normal part of the household that, you know, the child knows that the parents are taking time for themselves or taking alone time, then and again, I don't have children yet, but those would be ideas that I would have or that I'm wanting to try when I do have children. Um, the other thing too is that children are very mindful just naturally. So if there are opportunities, maybe before reprimanding them for a situation, maybe assessing if it's maybe a moment for mindfulness. So, you know, the kid that is splashing in the mud or wants to splash in the mud, that is a mindful practice where the child may be getting curious, asking questions, how does it feel? And I know in the back of your mind, I'm probably like, oh my God, I have to clean that. But giving those moments of play and exploration are really important. And a friend of mine actually shared a video of her daughter. This was a couple of years ago, but her daughter found a container of Vaseline. And you might know where this is going, but her daughter put Vaseline all over her face. And like West Indian families or parents in general, probably the first thing they would do is shout at the child, like, why would you do that? But she took the moment to really get curious with her daughter about like how it felt and like kind of asking her maybe like why she did it and whatnot. So she didn't reprimand the child, but she allowed it to be an opportunity of curiosity. As far as what happened after the video, I don't know. But at least it was a moment. Um, yeah, children are so mindful. They're so curious. If they're, fascinated with a dragonfly or maybe a flower or something, like taking that time with them and also exploring it too, because in most cases they're leading us. So it's can we join them in the mindfulness and also take that moment of pause as well. So yeah, those would be things that at least I want to try or I've done with like younger kids in my family or children of my friends, just trying to get curious or like, you're on the swing set with them, join them. So I guess it's part of being bringing that childfulness back into your life as well. And there is an actual concept of um, the childlike mind, right? Being curious, not to say that you're childish, but a childlike mind that um, looking at something as if it is the first time that you are interacting with it, or again, having that element of curiosity. I think curiosity is probably the key in terms of sort of what I'm sharing right now, but just getting curious with your kids.
I love the idea that the curiosity is the key. And I think if we were all to go into the world with more open minds about everything, I think we'd feel more settled and a lot would be different in the world in a really great way. So I like that idea a lot. Nice. Okay, so at Aura Body and Home, you run sessions and courses and offer all kinds of services where you yourself are face forward with your clients. But I know you also have a product called the EMA deck to help people infuse more mindfulness in their days when you are not with them. So can you tell us more about that deck and how people can get their hands on it?
Yeah, of course. I have it with me. So the EMI stands for Everyday Mindfulness Oracle, and it's a 30 card deck, 30 ideas on how you can be more mindful. So it is very much an extension of me in a way. I actually created this last year. So I have a background in graphic design, and I've always been really interested, or I have a number of card decks myself, but I didn't have a mindfulness one. And yeah, I was kind of going through some things last summer and really leaning into my practices and sort of the idea to, or the, I always had the idea, but the actual like motivation to actually do it. And yeah, the ideas just started coming towards me, and so I just was writing them down, and then I worked to then make them concise. So here's an example of a card. So um, again, it's just 4 lines of text. So this one is hug. So I'm gonna read it so I can actually read it. So wrap your arms around a loved one, yourself or a pillow. Show your love and appreciation with a long, warm embrace to express more than words ever could. So the practices, they're kind of divided into about 4 different sections. We have practices that are um, more introspective. So again, like journaling, they could be more social. So again, hugging another individual, or you can do that with yourself as well. There are ones that are more movement based. So for example, like dancing. There's so much that we can release through dancing and just moving our bodies. And then um, I think, and then meditation. So getting more stills. There is a meditate card. So actually, the 5 tips that I provided are all cards within this deck. So the idea behind it is that you can shuffle the deck for the day or whenever you have an intention for it. And then that is a mindful practice that you might be in need of. And when I have taken this deck to like markets, it's always been really interesting to see the reactions of people. Like some people are like, some people have been like really weirded out because they're like, that's so weird. Like I'm doing that today, or like my friend was just telling me about doing this, or so it's really resonated with individuals, and I love that because I mean I design the cards, but they definitely have their own magic to them. And so you would get the deck, and it also comes with a digital guide. So that way, beyond just the four lines, it goes a little bit deeper into. So, for example, hug. In the digital guide, I go deeper into an example, and I'll actually share it. But my late uncle, whenever we would go to visit him, whenever we gave a hug, if you didn't give a proper like two-arm hug, he would usually get upset. And he would say that hugs have two arms, right? So that you can really embrace each other. And at his funeral, his brother brought that up and had everyone in the congregation hug someone beside them. And it was such an impactful um, gesture to do. And it's something that I think about a lot whenever I am giving someone a hug, that I am, you know, well, the ones who really I want to give them that full embrace, the people who are familiar and our loved ones, to really give them that full embrace. Because sometimes we might not be able to communicate it, but they can feel that love. So the guide allows me to go a little bit deeper into, why I've maybe created the card or resources around that specific topic, to just, yeah, give you a little bit more of me and to be able to support you. And I've also done sessions, in-person sessions too. So I've had soul sessions where I focus on maybe three of the cards, and it's a way for me to support you in person with it. So yeah, so it's my baby, and so far I've sold within Canada, within the US. I know of some cards that are overseas as well, and I use it in my sessions because I think it's really important for us to have these reminders sometimes, especially, when we're stuck or even when we're not stuck. I pulled a card this morning, so I like to do it in the morning so that I then can plan it into my day. And it's also an opportunity for you to take a break. You can use these at work. You can use them if maybe you are facilitating sessions. Like I know individuals like massage therapists have gotten them so that it can be sort of a little takeaway when someone's left a session. And yeah, it's just 30 ideas of how you can practice mindfulness. And some of them are things that you probably wouldn't expect would be mindfulness, but they are. So again, it's the art of awareness. So, yeah.
Okay. So where can people get the deck and also connect with you?
Yeah, so the deck, so it's on my website. So it's aurabodyandhome.com. You can order the deck there. And I also have them available on Etsy as well. So if you're on Etsy, because it is well, I don't specifically print them, but I do consider it a handmade product. It's something that I print independently. So Etsy and my website would be the best places to get them. And you can also follow me on Instagram. So again, it's Aura Body and Home is my profile name.
Okay, that's great. All right. And before we go, I would like to ask you if you could do a short, maybe 3 to 5 minutes tops meditation, guided meditation for us.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, if anyone's listening and they want to actually add a little bit of music, they can. It's totally up to you. But I would start by just starting to settle into however you're seated, whether you're lying down. And you're welcome to keep your eyes open. If you want to lower your gaze or close eyes. And then can we just start to bring awareness to whatever is supporting us right now? So whether it's your chair or a cushion, you're on your bed. And then can we start to bring awareness maybe to our feet. So seeing if maybe our feet are planted on the ground, or maybe just feeling our heels rooted, getting a nice foundation. And then can we start to bring that awareness through our spines towards our posture, maybe finding some length through our spine. Maybe the crown of our head starts to reach a little bit higher. And then welcome to just find a nice restful spot for hands. And from here, welcome to just take a listen to whatever you might hear around you. Taking notice of anything that you might feel, whether it's maybe clothing or the temperature of the space around you. Is there anything that you might smell at this time? Anything that you might taste? And can we start to bring our awareness towards our breath? Noticing where breath is moving in and out of your body. And as you take notice, whether through nostrils or through belly, can you just be with the rhythm of your breath? And again, finding that compassionate awareness, simply observing. Take a few more breaths here. When you're feeling ready to just starting with a little bit of movement back into your body. It could be fingers, it could be through toes, movement through head and neck or arms and legs. And then may your eyes be the very last thing that opens if they happen to be closed. And welcome to just maybe look to one side of the room and then just taking a look to the other side. How are you feeling?
I love meditation. Thank you.
With meditation, there's so many different styles of meditation. We just did a little bit of mindful meditation where we just listened or accessed our senses. We focused then on our breath as well. There's also like visualizations that you can do. So there's so many different ways that we can practice meditation, but it really is just, again, bringing that awareness to our body, and hopefully from even just that short meditation, it might have sort of shifted, how you're feeling before and then after as well.
Yes. Well, for me, yes. I hope for everybody in the audience as well. All right, Erica, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate all the information you shared. And I'll see you again soon, hopefully.
Thank you so much.
All right, that's all we've got for you today. Thank you so much for watching and listening. I look forward to seeing you next time. Till then, take care, be well, and stay mindful. Bye.